So we are doing unit rates today as our lesson, and it says lesson 21 on here, but actually if you look on your calendar, we're going to be calling this lesson 6.1. So 6.1, unit rates. And when rates are expressed as a quantity with a denominator of 1, so we would say 35 miles per hour, we could write it like this: 35 miles every hour. So when we can write it with a denominator of 1, it's known as a unit rate. We use unit rates to make comparisons. And then remember when we talked about these proportional relationships, the unit rate is the same as y divided by x. To determine the unit rate, or sometimes you'll see it as the constant of proportionality, in a proportional relationship, we use this. This is what we've been using. Anytime we see in a chart where things are proportional, or on a graph where things are proportional, we can take the y value and divide it by the x value. So now we're just going to apply it a little bit more to story problems. This first example: a beach is eroding at the rate of 1/4 foot every 4 months. How many feet does the beach erode in a year? So the first thing we need to notice is we've got 1/4 of a foot every 4 months, but they're asking us for how much it happens in a year. So we're going to have to do some conversions, right? In 4 months, the number of months that we are looking at over our possible months in a year would be 12 months. So 4 months equals 1/3 of a year. We're just reducing our fraction, right? 4 over 12 is the same as 4 over 4 times 3, so our 4's can cancel out. And we don't have an empty space up here in our numerator. We've got an implied 1, right? So that 4 over 12 is the same as 1 over 3. So then we know that instead of saying it erodes at 1/4 of a foot every 4 months, we can say that it erodes 1/4 of a foot every 1/3 of a year. And I know you're looking at this and you're thinking, fractions inside of fractions. But let's rewrite it, okay? 1/4 over 1/3 is the same as saying 1/4 divided by 1/3. And we know if we're dividing by a fraction, that's the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So I can change my division problem into a multiplication problem. And that feels much better, right? Because when I'm multiplying fractions, I just do 1 times 3 equals 3, and 4 times 1 equals 4. So my unit rate is 3/4, and if I need to put in my units, then it would be 3/4 foot per year. So that's that first example. First thing we had to do was figure out that 4 months out of a year is 1/3 of that year. And then we put the feet, the 1/4 foot, over the 1/3 year. And we mathed it out. All right, let's scroll down. And we'll look at this test example 1. And we'll do that one together. Okay, Graham likes to walk to school. He walks 1 2/3 mile in 4/5 of an hour. What is his unit rate? Well, we've got miles per hour up here, but all of our answers are miles per hour as well. Oh, this is hours per mile and hours per mile. They messed those up. That's a typo. It should still be miles per hour and miles per hour. That was their mistake, not ours. Okay? But the point of that is I don't have to convert. Everything is in miles and hours exactly like I need it to be. So I start with, if it's miles per hour, I'm going to start with my miles up here and my hours down here, right? So Graham likes to walk to school at a rate of 1 2/3 miles over 4/5 of an hour. Well, the first thing I see is we've got this mixed number, that it would be better to put it into an improper fraction, right? So that we're just dealing with fractions and not with whole numbers. So remember to do this mixed number into an improper fraction. We take the whole number 1 times the denominator 3. 1 times 3 is 3. And we add the numerator 2, which would give me 5. So that number is my new numerator, and my denominator stays the same. So 1 2/3 is the same as 5/3. So now I've got 5/3 over 4/5. Write it out. 5/3 divided by 4/5. But remember, dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So if I want to multiply instead of divide, I just flip that second fraction, which I did not do. So now I will. So if I'm dividing by a fraction, I can multiply by the flip. I can multiply by the reciprocal. And that's just straight across, right? 5 times 5 is 25 over 3 times 4 is 12. 25 over 12. But that's not one of my answers, right? They take this improper fraction and they turn it back into a mixed number. I can do that. My whole number is how many times 12 goes into 25. Well, 12 goes into 25 2 times. That's 24. My denominator stays the same, and my numerator is the difference between 24 and 25, which is 1. So my answer is D. All right, I'm going to go ahead and scroll up a little bit. Number 1 on page 69. So these are try on our own questions. 2/3 of a recipe calls for 3/4 cup of sugar. How many cups are needed per recipe? So remember, cups per recipe tells us what needs to be in our fraction. So we're going to do cups per recipe. Okay? How much sugar do I have in this first part? 3/4 cups over 2/3 of the recipe. So I write it out like this: 3/4 divided by 2/3, but then I can multiply instead of divide. 3/4 times 3/2, or 3/2. And then I just go straight across. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. 9/8 is not one of my options, but 8 goes into 9 one time. Remember, my denominator stays the same, and my numerator is the denominator times the whole number, which would be 8 times 1 is 8, and the difference between that and the numerator. So that would be 9 minus 8 is 1. 1 1/8 cup. Number 2, which of the following represents the fastest speed? Can I go 3/4 of a mile in 1/4 of an hour, 5/6 of a mile in 1/2 an hour, 1/2 a mile in 1/3 of an hour, or 3/5 of a mile in 1/2 of an hour? So if we're going to compare these, we need to figure out what is the miles per hour of each one. So for A, we're going to do 3/4 divided by 1/4, which is the same as 3/4 times 4 over 1. And that would be 12 over 4, which is 3. You'll notice I stopped because there is a shortcut that you can do here, but I'm not sure if I want to go through that shortcut being this far away. So if you know the shortcut there, go for it. If you don't know it, we'll talk about it when I get back. Okay, so A is 3 miles an hour. B, 5/6 divided by 1/2, which is 5/6 times 2 over 1, which is 10 over 6, which is 1 4/6, which can be reduced to 1 2/3. All right, so far A's in the lead. Letter C, 1/2 divided by 1/3 is the same as 1/2 times 3 over 1, which is the same as 3 over 2. And if I'm trying to make this into a mixed number, 2 goes into 3 one time with a remainder of 1, and my denominator stays the same. Still looking like A. Let's try one more to make sure. Letter D, 3/5 divided by 1/2 is the same as 3/5 times 2 over 1, which is 3 times 2 is 6 over 5. And if we're going to make that into a mixed number, 5 goes into 6 one time with a remainder of 1, and my denominator stays the same. So, very clearly, the fastest speed is letter A. Number 3, a car travels 24 miles on 2/3 gallon of gas. How many miles per gallon does the car get? So we go miles per gallon. So we're looking at 24 miles over 2/3 gallon. So we rewrite this 24 divided by 2/3, which is the same as 24 times the reciprocal, which would be 3/2. Now remember, this 24, if I want to make it into a fraction, all I have to do is put it over 1. So 24 times 3 would be 72 over 2. And 2 goes into 72 36 times. So 36 miles. I'm looking to see if anything looks different. No, I think you can do all the rest of them with that same idea. Remember, look at your per term to find out what your fractions should be. So this is square feet per hour. So square feet over hour. This one is acres per hour, so it's acre over hour. Let's do number 6 together. That one's a little bit more complicated, and then I think after that I can go ahead and give you the answers. If you're wanting to practice 4 and 5, the answers are both D and D. So if you want to practice 4 and 5, you can do that and see if you come up with the right answer. But let's do 6 together. Water enters a tank at a rate of 2/3 gallon per 4/7 hour. It leaks out at a rate of 1/4 gallon per 1/2 hour. At what rate is the tank filling up? Well, we're going to have to do 2 different parts, right? We're going to have to do the enter rate minus the leak rate. So we've got 2 different parts we've got to do. Let's focus on the enter rate first. So it's entering at a rate of 2/3 gallon per hour. So my gallon's going to be on top. My hour's going to be on the bottom. 2/3 over 4/7, which is the same as 2/3 divided by 4/7, which is also the same as 2/3 times the reciprocal of 4/7, which is 7/4. And that gives me 14/12. But 14/12 can be reduced. 2 can go into both of those, right? So it's like saying 2 times 7 over 2 times 6. And if I'm looking at a fraction and I have something being multiplied in the top numerator, and I have that same number being multiplied in the denominator, then those two numbers can cancel out. So 14/12, if we reduce it, becomes 7/6. So that's my entrance rate. Now, finding my leak rate, it's still going to be gallon per hour. So my leak rate is 1/4 gallon per half hour, which is the same thing as saying 1/4 divided by 1/2, which is also 1/4 times 2/1, which is 2/4, but 2/4 can be reduced. It's the same as 2 times 1 over 2 times 2, right? So those 2's can cancel each other out, and 2/4 is 1/2. All right, you with me so far? I hope so. 7/6 minus 1/2. If I am adding or subtracting fractions, my denominator has to be the same in both of my fractions. And right now I've got one denominator that's 6 and one denominator that's 2. So I need to find something that 6 and 2 both go into. Well, thankfully, that's 6. So 7/6 stays 7/6. But if I want 1/2 to become a fraction with 6 in the denominator, I need to look and say 2 times what equals 6? Well, 2 times 3. And then if I multiplied that 2 times 3 to get 6, I need to multiply the 1 times 3 to get my numerator. So 1/2 is the same as 3/6. And now, if I'm subtracting fractions, my denominator stays the same, which is why they have to be the same number for both fractions. And my numerator, I just find the difference between the two numbers. 7 minus 3 is 4. But 4/6 isn't one of my options. So I have to see, can 4/6 be reduced? Yes, it can. 2 times 2 over 2 times 3. My 2's cancel each other out. So 4/6 is the same thing as 2/3. Okay, so that is page 1, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the lesson there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up, and I'll give you the answers to questions 7 through 12 in case you want to try them for yourself. So let me go scroll up. And you can look at this when you are ready. The answer to number 7 is D. The answer to number 8 is B. The answer to number 9 is D. The answer to number 10 is A. The answer to number 11 is C. And the answer to number 12 is C. So those are our answers. If you get stuck in it, you can ask Miss Laura to give you some help to get unstuck. Or if you're able to see the right answers, great! I celebrate with you. I hope you're doing well, and we will see each other when I get back.